Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to another, People's Food and Farming Alliance presentation. And this evening, I'm joined by the wonderful Nicola Delglyn. Usually, I introduce people, but I'm going to allow Nikki to introduce herself this evening and explain what she does and what she's here to offer us this evening. So, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us, my love. Very grateful.
Thank you, Catherine, for inviting me. I hope that people find it interesting and enjoyable as well.
Please do go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, well, hi everyone. I've just got names in front of me, no photographs or anything. So yes, my name is Nicola Delglyn. I think a few of you might know me from previous life. So yeah, I'm a doctor of osteomyology, which is the study of bones and muscles, basically. And I've been in sports medicine and physiology for almost 30 years. My background is in, as I said, sports medicine. So I've dealt with sports people for the majority of my career. But now I'm sort of taking a little bit of a back seat away from sports because it's really heavy going work. And I've set up over the past 6 to 7 years a female health clinic. So I'm working with ladies who are suffering with pelvic health, back pain, and need rehabilitation, basically. And together within that is a huge aspect of nutrition. So with athletes, we have to use nutrition to the best of our ability to provide them with the energy that they need to both compete, but also to recover from competition, from training, and also from injury. And that's where I come from. I'm also a fitness instructor. I'm literally got the whole of my garage out on my driveway because I'm having a new rehab gym put in, which I'm really, really excited about. I'm a Pilates teacher and a yoga instructor, golf fitness specialist. I work with golfers a lot, and a senior exercise specialist as well as a nutritionist. So I've got lots and lots of skills, but hopefully the one thing that you'll get from me is that I'm a real person. I'm a mum of 2 girls. One of them is a semi-professional footballer herself now at university. My other daughter loves diving, loves being out in the open, and is currently in the Mediterranean working on super yachts. So I've got 2 ends of the scale. One is very much a free spirit. The other one is very organized and determined to succeed. So I've created a program which is called the Radiant Pelvic Floor Program as one of them, and the Radiant Spine, which is rehabilitation. So you can find that out on my website, which is nickydelglyn.com. But the reason I've come today is that I'm very passionate about, as I said, about rehabilitation, getting people back to being able to live their lives. And one of the things that we need to be doing is not only physically being active, and I know a lot of you are in the farming sector. So if you've got a small holding, you're going to be physically active. So anybody who's physically active does exercise of any form. I class you as athletes because I've seen those who are quite sedentary and those people who are active. And you pose a slightly different, I won't say problem, but challenge for people like myself. And that's what I really, really love. So today's talk, I thought, I'll go through the basics of how to stay healthy and well. So it goes back to something that I'd read many, many, many years ago, and that was Hippocrates said, and he's the father of modern medicine. Although I do prefer holistic medicine myself, rather than having to rely on pharmaceutical drugs all the time. Food is a great healer. It's another thing that he said, and so did Aristotle, I think it was. But let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. So that was the gist of what I was going to speak about today. And looking at staying healthy and well, we need a whole host of things for the human body to stay healthy and well. So when we think about it, and I've just got a few that I'll go through with you, is food, obviously. and that's good food. Community is really, really important for the soul. It's very important for human beings to be part of a community and not isolated. I think we've seen the ramifications of that throughout lockdown and what that has done to of society, but also people suffering whilst they were in lockdown. Unfair, and I was not a fan of that at all. Hydration is vitally important. Exercise is, managing stress levels. And I see one of the ladies, Vicky will probably be nodding at this one. Stress levels for women in particular as we age is can lead to chronic ailments as we go through menopause. So hopefully Vicky's going, yes, yes, yes. And the last one is sleep. We all need to have sleep. So when you think about it, and I said this to Katherine when we had a chat before, nutrition itself, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, nutrition is really simple for the for humans, but humans love to make things complicated. We do it in all sorts of ways, and it's unnecessary. The only thing that we need to keep our body functioning are those things to stay healthy and well, but food that is nutritious. And that's where people start to question, well, what is nutrition then? What does nourish mean? And I sort of had a thought, this is what I'll go through with you. So having said staying healthy and well, let's have a look at what nutrition is. And the definition of nutrition is the process by which we take in and utilize foodstuffs to nourish our bodies. That's it. So what does nourish mean? So nourish is to provide the body with the food necessary for growth, health, and good condition. That all sounds fairly straightforward. So then I sort of asked myself, well, okay, that's great. What is food? Food has to be classed as, and this is the definition in the dictionary, nutritious substances that people or animals and even plants absorb, drink, eat in order to grow and maintain life. So if we think about all of those definitions, the majority of people, when they go into a supermarket, for instance, won't actually be buying nutritious food that is going to keep them in good condition and good health. So we see an awful lot of dis-ease. So again, that is something that was spoken about many, many moons ago, thousands and thousands of years ago, is that disease is the body in dis-ease. There's something not quite right. And I say to my patients when they come in, if they're in pain, they're in discomfort, things aren't working right, their body is telling them that it's not happy. So for any nutritional practitioner or any body practitioner, what we're trying to do is work out how can we turn back all of the disease in the body so that somebody can heal and heal beneficially for them to be able to carry on their life. So I hope that makes sense to you, because I think it's important that we understand what food actually is. And what I'll do now is, I was going to do a little bit of a brainstorm, but I won't. But if we have a look at food examples, if I ask a group of people, and I have done this just recently, and I said, right, okay, we're going to talk about examples of food. What foods do you eat and what would you class as food? So I have some really good answers like, well, carrots, potatoes, chicken. Somebody came out with duck. I thought, well, that's a different one. I've not heard, nobody's ever come out with duck before. That's very nice. Then pigs, eggs, milk, etc. Some people come out with crisps, pizza, chips, all of those things. I'm going, right, okay, I know where this is going, because the when people think of food, they think of food in aisles in the supermarket. And supermarkets are very clever at putting out food in certain areas of the supermarket to try and entice you to go further in to buy. So marketing is, is absolutely brilliant. Hopefully most supermarkets, if you go into them, have got the fruits and the vegetables first, and then they've got usually the bread, if they make bread. So you are drawn to the smell of the bread to take you further into the shop. At eyeline, you usually find the high calorific or high sugar content foods. So that's one that is very easy to pick up off the shelf. So they're enticing you to choose that. I always go around, if I go to the supermarket, I always go around and see where they're putting their produce. And end of aisle is another one because it's close to the checkout. So it's easy for you to turn around and say, oh, I wouldn't mind that bar of chocolate. I'll go and grab that, So they're always manipulating the way that they sell their products and entice us to go and choose their products because there's so much on the shelves now. So food really is very, very simple for human beings. And I usually say to my people in clinic, and please, hopefully I've got somebody who's, if you are vegan or vegetarian, I'm really sorry about this, but I'll say it as brutal as it is, that if you can't kill it and you can't pull it off a tree or from the ground, then do you really need to eat it? Yeah, fundamentally, that's it. Humans existed for millennia on berries, seeds, vegetables, and protein coming from either fish or from animals or from plant-based. And that is it. That's it. As far as I'm concerned, other people might have other ideas on nutrition and diet. But if I'm dealing with somebody who has got a chronic disease, I'll look at their diet and then I will really try and strip it back for them so that they understand that chemically laden foods are not. I've got that. There you go.
There you go. Sorry, love.
No, that's okay. And also if I'm dealing with athletes, for instance, a lot of them rely on high sugar rather than proper, as I call them, proper carbohydrates to get their energy. So we look at how we can change that so that their performances are a lot better, but more importantly, that they're able to recover. So their body is able to recover at a quicker and a better rate so that they can get ready for their competition. They can sustain the amount of energy expenditure, but also the disruptive nature of their high impact exercise and weight training, for instance. So hopefully that's given you an idea sort of about food and what nourishment needs, etc. And then I was just going to go through the differences between the foods that we've got. We've got real food, which I've just explained. Then so we call that unprocessed food. And I think a few of you, Katherine, alluded to is that you've got small holdings and you you grow your own vegetables and your own produce, which is fabulous. So unprocessed foods, we've got processed foods and ultra processed. So your unprocessed foods literally are things like nuts, as I said, nuts, seeds, plants, animals, eggs, fish, fruit, and vegetables. Then we go into the processed side of things, and that's like ham and cheese, sausages, what else? And it's some produce that has got added fat to it or sugar or salt. So you do find those in supermarkets and also in produce that the butcher puts in front of us. But processed foods in moderation aren't too bad. It's just if we eat things in excess, it's like anything, it can cause us issues. And then we've obviously got the ultra processed. Now, ultra processed foods are those foods that have got the E numbers in. They've usually got flavorings in, sugar, sweetener. They've got a long shelf life. things like cakes, pastries, pizzas, ready meals in particular, cereals. So anything that is in a packet is usually very ultra processed. And I said to Katherine a couple of weeks ago that both my husband and I worked in the fast moving consumable goods industry. So we were in manufacturing units. My husband was logistics, I was actually production planning. So we saw the I don't want to be rude, but the amount of, sorry, am I allowed to swear? The amount of crap that went into food stuff that was then molded and framed into looking like a beef burger. Yeah. And a lot of the vegetarian and vegan foods, again, they're all mashed together. They've got high numbers in them. They've got lots of flavorings. They've got artificial all sorts in them to give them long shelf life, but also to make them taste nice because the ingredients are awful. So yeah, we don't eat anything like that because we saw what went into it. So yeah, margarine, keep away from margarine, go for butter, a little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil, or an oil that you like, sprinkle it all over your food, and that's really, really good. So ultra processed are the danger zones for us, because through the manufacturing process, what happens is from the laboratory to production, all of the goodness is taken out of the product. And then they add in all of the things that will make it taste good for us. Sugar is added because it's addictive. Sugar is highly addictive to the human species. It's addictive to any animal, because if you've got animals and you feed them treats like dogs, cats, rabbits, they will always like the sweetness and they'll come back for more. So that's where I think that we're getting the obesity crisis coming through, is that there's so much sugar now pumped into foods that you buy off the supermarket shelf, that it is having a detrimental effect on our health. And we've got to think about doing things slightly differently to maintain longevity, maintain a healthy, fit body that is going to see us through into our later years. Does that make sense so far? Am I going all right? Okay, so if we have a look then at, I'm going to take you through a little bit about digestion. Sorry if you already know this, but I think it's important for us to know where our food is actually going and what happens. And this is a little bit of psychology as well. So the first protocol when we eat something is that we see it. So we might see a cake or a bar of chocolate. Our eyes are the first thing that we associate with food digestion. So we're seeing something, we're starting to crave that thing because it looks really, really nice. It's brightly colored. And then we start to salivate. So the salivation process heightens because we then usually smell something. It's like a loaf of bread. We'll see it, we'll pick it up, we'll give it a squeeze, we'll smell it, it smells delicious. So then we go in and we taste it. So we start to chew it, and the digestive system starts working there because the enzymes in the mouth start to, as we chew, start to break down the food so that it is then ready to ingest. So we take it down through the esophagus down into the stomach after we swallowed it, and it's churned around, and the stomach acids release some of the and the enzymes break down the food, and that triggers off the liver to reduce that triggers the liver to excrete something called bile, which either goes straight into the small intestine or it'll be stored in the gallbladder. And the bile actually helps with fat digestion, breakdown of fat, and like I said, it's excreted and stored in the gallbladder. So if anybody has gallbladder issues, they usually have pain on eating a high-fat diet. They usually have a pain either just underneath the shoulder blade, sort of mid-back area, or they'll get it just around about underneath the rib cage. So that's a question that I often ask my people who may be slightly overweight and they've got problems with their what we call the thoracic back. So that's the mid back. You know, what's your diet like? What are you eating? Are there any correlations to you eating a high fat diet or not? So I can try and gain an idea of whether or not it is something to do with the liver or the gallbladder. So anyway, we go from that, we go to the pancreas, which is that's a fascinating organ, actually, the pancreas, because it sits behind the liver and it's very hard to detect, and it's very hard to detect if anything is wrong with it. I say that my uncle unfortunately died of pancreatic cancer, so I did a lot of reading about that and the symptoms. And the symptoms mimic sometimes some of the stuff that goes on with the liver, so they never really know. But the pancreas also secretes nice juices and enzymes that break down the carbohydrates and the fats and the proteins that we eat. So once that happens, it then comes down into the small intestine, and the small intestine is the one that seems to go on for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. It's a very small one in comparison to the colon. And that's where all of the great vitamins and minerals are absorbed through the inner lining of that, so that our body can then start to use those in everyday life, helping with the immune system, for instance, and energy systems. So going on from the small intestine, once it's gone all the way through the windy curves and everything is, the majority of the minerals and vitamins are absorbed, it then goes into the large intestine. So the large intestine is usually the one that is more prevalent to cancer, so colon cancer. And that isn't as large or as long as the small intestine, but that's really where the body then takes and removes the excess water and electrolytes from the remaining food, and through what we call a peristalsis movement, which is like this. And sometimes you might be actually able to feel the food going through the colon, and especially if you have wind, you might be able to feel the bowel moving like this underneath your fingers. So the food then moves all around the colon, and it also in the colon, it also makes vitamin K. And vitamin K and vitamin D are vital, together with calcium, for bones and arteries, etc. So anyway, we go through that down to the rectum, and then we excrete the waste. So that is digestion. So it should be really quite easy for us to be able to take something in, digest it, allow the colon and the small intestine to do their business and go to the toilet at the end of the day. But we do have problems with that, and I do believe that it's because we've got a complicated diet system now that our body is starting to say, well, there's a lot of stuff going through here. I don't know what to do with it, because it's not natural, it's foreign. So I can't absorb what I need to absorb. So then we get malabsorption issues, which means that we're going to be more prone to disease or conditions that mean that the body starts to break down. So if anybody comes in and they've got really complicated history, I do, and I've said it before, is I'll go through their medical history, but also their diet, so that I can have an understanding of what might be missing. And that's when I ask the question, how many green veg do you eat? And they look at me and say, well, I have peas. Go, right, good, that's green, yeah, lovely. And they go, well, oh, I had a bit of cabbage. Right. Yeah, great. That's another good one. And then they say, well, hang on a minute. What about broccoli? Oh, I don't like broccoli. Said, have you tried broccoli recently? No, no, I don't like it. Didn't like it as a kid. Right. Okay. Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, curly kale. And you can see them glazing over and they're thinking, oh no, we've got a health freak here. And I said, look, I usually say, look, I'm not telling you what to do. However, we do need to address the symptoms that you've got. So we do need to be looking at your diet. And usually with a little bit of give and take, we can get them feeding themselves a little bit better. So the essential nutrients that we need as human beings, and it is very simple, are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now, Vicky's going to come in and say, no, she's forgotten something. Hopefully I haven't. But anyway, that's what I look for in a diet plan is carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So with those, your carbohydrates are broken down into simple carbohydrates or complex carbohydrates. And the easy way to think about it is simple carbohydrates are those that give you instant energy rushes. So they will be the things like that are laden with sugar. Yeah, and it's okay to have that sometimes because some of our fruits, for instance, they have simple carbohydrates in them because they're higher in sugar, and so are some root vegetables as well. But they also contain fiber, and that's the big difference. Processed and ultra processed foods, if they are things like cakes and breads, crisps, etc., they haven't got the fiber, and we need the fiber for the body to actually be able to digest and excrete at the end of the day. Yeah. So you're always better off getting your carbohydrates from a complex food, which are from all of your vegetables and most of your fruit, including your berries and nuts, seeds, the whole lot. Likewise with proteins, sorry, I forgot to say that carbohydrates are used as the primary source of energy. So for athletes and for anybody who's working the land, you need to have enough carbohydrates so that you have got enough energy to be able to do your job. Because if you haven't, you'll be going into energy reserve and your muscles are going to fatigue and they're going to deteriorate and you're going to end up injured. So it's working out the best carbohydrates for you and your activity levels. Then we go into proteins, and proteins are ones that with my ladies, I found it, and I'm sure some of you on there will find this as well, is that we tend not to eat enough protein. And when I ask my ladies, oh no, I don't, and they might eat a load of vegetables and they'll be on a vegetarian diet, which is plant-based, which is great, but they're not eating enough of those good plant proteins to be able to maintain growth and repair of their body tissues. So that means that if they get injured, it can take longer for them to repair and to be able to get back to normal. And I do think that that is one of the reasons why we're having problems with frozen shoulder, back issues, high hamstring tendonitis, for instance, all of those things. And I think it's down to the fact that we're not eating as we get older enough protein. And what protein will do, and especially if you do work the land again, what it's going to help you with is building and maintaining your muscle mass. So your muscle mass is vitally important because that keeps the structure of the body strong. And if we're strong, that is a really good longevity marker. We call them longevity markers. So a longevity marker is an indication of how long you're going to be able to stay mobile and independent. And for me, that is a huge thing, especially with women aging, and also the few gentlemen that I look after, but especially for women, because we do tend to get very frail as we get older. But I say to my ladies, let's up the protein. We'll do it through plant, and if they like animal protein and fish, we'll do it that way. And I also get them doing a little bit more muscle work. So we do work in the gym on pumping some iron, which is usually fun when they're 80. But we get them doing it, and they come back in a couple of months. They say, you know what, I've got a bicep. And I said, yeah, how about that? That's really good. And the fundamental one, I'm going off piece a little bit, but the fundamental one for me is to be able to sit down doing a squat, because we squat all of the time. We need to be able to go to the toilet, and we need to be able to sit down and eat our meal. So they get their legs working. And yeah, we do have some fun, and I test them and challenge them, but they can do it. So I haven't got a problem with that. And then the last food is fats. And fats are really, really important for us. For years and years, especially when I was growing up, everybody had to go on a low-fat diet. So I worked in a production facility where they made low-fat products, and I don't eat that. I eat high-fat everything. Now, there's a caveat to this, because it's going to be going out on YouTube, is that if you have an issue and your doctor has prescribed you a low-fat diet, then I'm not saying not to go off your low-fat diet. However, what I'm doing is giving you an alternative, and that is fats are not the bad boy, because there are so many good beneficial fats, and that's been proven by the Mediterranean diet. And may I say it, but the late Michael Mosley, with his research, found that the fats that you have in a Mediterranean diet are very, very beneficial for human health. I say no more. You need fat for energy storage. We need it for cell function, and it protects the organs as well. Without fat, we start to really succumb to the possibility of injury and illness. So if anybody is eradicating full fats, and when I say that, I mean good polyunsaturated fats. So they're things that you would get in the likes of, should I say, avocado? That's a really good one. Olive oil, olives, your rich fatty fishes, all of those. So there's a lot of good fat out there. And I'm going to put something controversial on there, because I have butter. I have my toast with butter. Yeah. So I don't have butter with my toast. I actually have butter toast with my butter, because I love butter. And that's my treat. But my body knows how to digest that fat. It doesn't know how to digest fat that you find in products in the supermarket. It's alien. It's been manufactured in a laboratory and put together in food to make it taste nice. And a lot of the fats, not so much now in the UK, but there are lots of fats out there that are called trans fats. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but trans fats are detrimental to human health. They can, I've forgotten the word because I've gone menopausal now, but they accumulate in the cells, and the cells don't know what to do with them. So they'll just store it. And if you're storing unwanted and unnecessarily ingredients in your body, your cells aren't going to function properly. That then comes down to cellular biology and chemistry. And that cell is going to start to die, the mitochondria, etc. They're not going to be able to function properly. And what happens then is that if the cells die, they're not going to replicate. Is that why we have cancer rising? I just put that question out there. So fat is a good thing for us. And like I said, it helps with energy storage. So if you're eating the right carbohydrates and the right proteins, having the fat going alongside means that your body is going to be able to utilize the food as a complete rather than an incomplete, if that makes sense. So you should be able to get the right nutrition for your body so that you can maintain growth, health, and good condition. And at the end of the day, that's nourishment. And anything that you put in your body food-wise should be able to help you to grow and maintain life. And that is simply it. So going on now from macros and micros, hydration, that's water, simple, nice and easy. I do like a cup of coffee every now and again, and I have cream in mine too. doctor will go mad if they say, oh yeah, I have butter, I have cream and everything, but I do like some cream in my coffee. I have one a day, and then the rest of it is water. And then we're looking at so those that I've just spoken about, they're called in sort of the sphere that I'm in, we call them micros. So we'll work out the micros and the macro levels that somebody needs to sustain a happy, healthy life. We then go on to micros, and I won't spend too much time here because this is all about vitamins and minerals, and we've got tons of them that we get. If we've got a varied diet, we will get every vitamin and mineral that we need for our bodies and the cells, more importantly, within our body to stay healthy and to be able to react to different conditions that we might find ourselves in, such as stress levels, etc. It's when you get an imbalance, then the body tends to, it will tell you, it'll say, you know what, I've got pain in my back. What have I done? Oh yeah, I've hurt myself. Or if we've got high anxiety, that's your body saying that something's not quite right. We need to just take stock. So if we go into the vitamins, I've got a couple here. I've written them down because these are the ones that we tend to think about all of the time. And that's one of them is vitamin C. Obviously, that's really important for our immune system. And vitamin C comes from your green leafy vegetables as well as some of your fruit. So you probably get more vitamin C from your broccoli and your kale than you would do by eating an orange. So there are all sorts of different ways you can get your vitamin C. Vitamin K is used for the bones. So that's another important one. And then we go to vitamin D, and vitamin D actually is a class as a hormone. I call it the mother hormone because it's without vitamin D, none of the cells can really function the way that they should do. So we need to be getting vitamin D somehow, either in our diet or from the sun. In the Northern Hemisphere, as we've seen with our summer this year, we get very little sun. So I'm actually still taking my vitamin D capsules so that I could just maintain. Now, if we go low on vitamin D, say it's the mother hormone, we can end up with depression. That's a huge thing. People suffer with SAD. That might not be down to the fact that they're depressed. They just got low mood, and that could be vitamin D levels are low. So it's important that we have enough of the vitamin D. And I don't know if it was something that I was doing with Vicky many years ago on a course, but I did learn that mushrooms are one of the only vegetables that if you put them back out on in the sunshine, they sort of replicate more vitamin D. I hope I've said that right, because I always put my mushrooms out on the side. If it's been really awful and they've had to go in the fridge, I'll put them outside on the windowsill just so that they can absorb the extra vitamin D. But you've got to have the skin on them, apparently. So and the other vitamin that's really important for us is vitamin B12, because the ramifications of low vitamin B12, and you can get that in all sorts of products, eggs, etc. It's low vitamin. I'll go into that in a minute if that's all right. Sorry, I'm digressing. So those are some of the vitamins that I look for in my ladies in particular, and also with some of my athletes. And then we've got the minerals. So the minerals are the thing, they're what come out of the ground. And this is where it's fascinating with farming and the way farming's gone, is that the soil has been eroded of the majority of good minerals that our body needs for everyday life through different farming processes, etc. And you guys are far more knowledgeable about this than I am. But I would say that the things that we need to be taking from the ground are things like your calciums, your potassium. Selenium is a huge one. And in a previous life, I worked in a sales department for a chemical company prior to going into a pharmaceutical company again, it was in production planning. And I was responsible for the selenium the weigh in, etc., selenium, and actually selling the selenium on. Now, in huge quantities, it is absolutely, it's deadly. It really is. But small amounts of selenium are vital for things like our thyroid function, DNA protection, protects against free radical damage within the cell, so it keeps the mitochondria working. And that's your little powerhouse that keeps the cells alive, basically, and functioning the way that they need to, so that we can maintain good health. Selenium that's in the soils in the UK are really, really low. And that's because of so they say, the over farming of the soil. So if you think about it, even though we might be eating lots and lots of good vegetables that you get in the supermarket, you're still not getting the minerals that you need in the quantities that you need. There was a study done on a tomato. I think that it was back in the 1950s. They took a tomato, the nutritional content. They did one about 10, 15 years ago, and the tomato nutritional content had decreased by something like 50% over that period of time, because it was not being grown in what's the word, nutritious soil. So when you think about it, how many people have got thyroid function issues nowadays? You know, they've got overactive or underactive thyroid. So selenium is one that I do look at for some of my patients if they've got issues with thyroid that I might think might need testing. So there's a little bit about the minerals, and I was going to go on to the farming and the soil, and say that, you know, what I found with the Katherine's group is that you're really taking it now very seriously, and you're thinking about really planting the right produce and using the soil and putting back in the animal waste that is needed and is beneficial for that top layer of the soil, so that our fruits and vegetables can grow and give us the nutritional content that we need. So it's just a shame that farming has just become very I suppose it's very similar to the food processing industry. It's so vast now that and it's all about quantity as opposed to quality. And I think we need to be altering the way that we buy our foods, is thinking, I need quality as opposed to quantity, because how much food gets wasted because we just don't eat it. And that is sacrilege. It really is. So I love what you're doing with regards to your farming projects and that, and actually looking after the animals as well, is because they are part of the food chain, yes. But if you look after an animal and it's had a really good life, and then it goes into the human food chain, then it's, you know, that's what it's there for at the end of the day. What I disagree with is, and I have seen it and it's grotesque, is the way that they ultra farm these poor animals, and they haven't got a life. The poor things are born and they're just shoved in pens and what have you. But that's another story. I'm talking about nutrition. I get very passionate about animals because I do like animals, but I do think that we do need to eat animal protein, because you can't get enough sometimes through plant protein. Although it's very good to give the digestive system a little bit of a rest from animal protein, especially as we get older, because we become less able to absorb the nutrients as readily. We can go into that at a later date if you want to, Katherine. So let me go back to vitamin B, because this was something that I was really interested in. I've got my book here, which is The Dementia Myth. So vitamin B12, the symptoms that I see in clinic with people who are low in vitamin B12, they replicate dementia. Now, 90% of people who are diagnosed with dementia and are living with dementia could actually have vitamin B12 deficiency, or they might have a fluid buildup in the brain. Now, anybody who is about my age will know of a band called Spinal Tap. Yeah. Spinal tap got their name from the small procedure that was done by surgeons, which was a tap at the base of the skull to drain the fluid from the brain, which meant that people with hydrocephalus never progressed the disease into Alzheimer's or dementia, as it was. Yeah, so that's a little story there. So vitamin B12 deficiencies, shortness in breath, fatigue, indigestion, loss of appetite, palpitations, feeling weak, diarrhea, sore red tongue, ulcers. Yeah. Memory issues are a thing as well with it, as well as, and this is why I test, is that people come in and they say, you know, I've got numbness in my fingers and numbness in my toes. They're not a diabetic risk. So what could be going on? So then we do some tests to see. Another one, like I said, muscle weakness, balance issues. Yeah. Pins and needles and incontinence. And that's where I got fascinated with vitamin B deficiency, because one, my mother-in-law is living with dementia, bless her. And I said to my husband that I believe that she was suffering vitamin B12 deficiency, but we didn't catch it in enough time. So she then progressed on to dementia, and now she's on the medication, but there's another story. So yeah, so the incontinence thing was something really big for me, because obviously I work with women and pelvic floor issues and pelvic health. So it sort of interlinks. The other thing that vitamin B12 can lead to is precocious anemia. So with women in particular, as we get older, go through menopause, we become anemic. So that could be caused by vitamin 12 deficiency. I'm not saying it is, but it's always worth, if you've got any of those symptoms, is go to the doctor and ask for a vitamin B12 test, or just see by taking a simple vitamin B12 supplement if your symptoms do improve. So that's a little bit of the lecture over with. And I don't know, I was thinking about the microbiome as well, because that's important for us. That's found in the colon, for instance, and it's vitally important for our overall health and our immunity as well. So with the human biome, we find it's a community of literally trillions of little microorganisms found on and in our body. Most of them are found in the gut, but we've got them in our mouth, we've got them on our skin, we have them in the digestive system, and in particular with women, we've got them in the urogenital tract. And they are so important for when we have children, to pass on our immunity to the children. So when it came to a few years ago, when everybody was saying you've got to put antibacterial hand gel and stuff on, I said no, because they were going to destroy my microbiome. And without that, my skin I would lose my barrier, if you like, to disease. So, and likewise, when they were asking us to mask up, I said, no, because I need the microbiome in the mouth to be able to survive. And would that actually start to decrease its effectiveness? And as it's part of my immune system, I'm not going to acquiesce, is the word. So I go off track again there. So yeah, the microbiome is vitally important for our immune system. So by eating the right foods that we've gone through and keeping foods very basic, cutting out as much sugar as we can, we're going to give our gut and the microbiome the best possible chance of actually surviving and recolonizing and staying really strong, so that it will help us not only with our immunity and our overall health, but also the transit of all of the gunk that's going through the large intestine and needs to come out at the end of the day. And I think the only other thing I was going to say is, because somebody did ask me it, is would you go for organic or non-organic? I always say, if you can afford organic, you guys are going to be building your own larder, which is fabulous. But if you can afford organic, go for organic, because it's less likely to have pesticides on it. And it's going to be easier for your body to take on those nutrients that we've just spoken about. But if you are on a budget, and I know lots of people are now, is have a look at something called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So that comes out from the EWG. Oh, I can't remember what EWG is, something Environmental Working Group, that's it. So the Environmental Working Group, they come out with a list of all of the fruits and vegetables that have got less pesticides in them. So they're called the clean 15, and then the Dirty Dozen are the ones that are heavily laden with toxins and pesticides. So I always say to my ladies and patients that if you can't go completely organic, go for those produce that are on the clean 15, and if you can for if you can't afford them on organic, yeah, so you buy those from your supermarket or your local farm if they're using pesticides. And then for the Dirty Dozen, really buy those as organic, so that you can get a flavor of the two, so that you can, you can try and negate the toxicity that's coming through from all of the heavily laden pesticides that are put on farm foods that we buy in the supermarkets. And apart from that, I think I've more or less done, unless anybody's got any questions. Hopefully I haven't.
I have. It's really interesting because for quite a while now, on social media, there's been a big push on the carnivore side of things or the keto side of things. And whilst I can see the advantages to it in the sense of limiting the amount of sugars, I felt quite uncomfortable personally going down that road, because I like to have the benefit of plants and other produce. I must admit, I do try and have a low-ish carb diet, because I can allow it to run away with me. And the same with gluten. I try and keep that to a minimum, maybe once a week, maybe 2 portions a week or something. But is it balance? I mean, is that the fundamental basics here that you're suggesting? Is that balance of the 3 food types predominantly?
Yeah.
And just making this, because for me it's the whole foods, that's the thing that's important, is the whole foods, and not too much of the convenient side of things. Is that the way to view it, rather than a particular diet like these fad diets that come out?
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I suppose I should have used the word whole food. It's just something that automatically is in my head anyway, that you need to be going for whole foods, yes. And like I said, human nutrition is very, very easy. When you mentioned the gluten side of things, gluten only came about, I don't know how many 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago or whenever, but that actually was manipulated. Those crops were manipulated for human consumption, and are, I believe, anthropologically, I think that's the way you pronounce it, is that our body still hasn't got used to being able to digest everything that's in that product. And some of us are more sensitive to others than others. And nowadays, the fields are to help with the amount that needs to be produced. They've genetically modified in a way. And especially not so much in the UK, but I know definitely in America. And it's quite interesting that in France, the French government have stipulated that their breads, for instance, can only have 2 or 3 ingredients in them, and the flour that they use is not genetically modified. That's what I've been led to believe. So yes, going back to your question is trying to keep it whole food, so that you have got, if it's got any more than 4 ingredients on whatever packet it is, and it's got a long shelf life, don't touch it.
Don't do it.
Go for an alternative that is natural. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, brilliant. Thank you for clearing that up, because there's so much information out there, I think, and a lot of people get confused. Charlotte's very kindly come up with a question. I've read a lot about appeal on vegetables, including organic. Do you know how prevalent the use is in the UK? I haven't seen it yet. That's just my viewpoint. Have you come across that at all, Nikki?
I haven't. I did hear about it last year that was coming in, but the little bit of research that I've done is indicating that we haven't actually got it yet.
Yeah.
The problem that we've got is that they're not telling us the produce from overseas, what is on those.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to have problems, I think, is because we import so much now, because they've destroyed farming in this
Yeah.
country, and we're reliant on imports of so many things, that I think that that's the way that it's going to come through. But Charlotte, I don't know an awful lot about it, I'm afraid. It is something that I need to have a look into, but thank you very much for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. That is something that we need to be aware of, guys, is that the food that's imported into this country, those that are sending it into the country, they do not have to meet the same standards as British farmers. So just have that on your radar, because obviously they can sneak things in under the radar that we're not aware of. Now, Vicky might have to jump in here, but you might well know the answer, actually, Nikki. I know that there's certain things you can wash your fruit and veg in when you buy it from the supermarket, that could be helpful in limiting the amount of pesticides and various nasties that might be on your fruit and veg and salad products. Do you know what that, or have a suggestion of what that could look like?
Vicky probably have a different answer to me, but I'd love to hear what Vicky says. What I personally do is I use distilled vinegar.
Yeah.
So I just wash it in warm water with distilled vinegar, and just let it sort of shake it out and let it drain, or pat it dry in either tissue paper, or I usually got loads of tea towels, so I'll pat that down. So that's what I use, because I try with my products, household products, is to use lemon juice and distilled vinegar for cleaning and disinfecting. So I do it with the food as well.
What about you,
And I
Vicky?
will
Have you
add
got a
to
different
that.
one?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
will add to that. You can only wash off what is on the surface.
Yeah.
What it's been grown in, so the glyphosate, etc., when it's been grown in the ground, that's in the food. It's grown with that, so you can't wash that off.
Yeah.
So yes, you can wash it off with vinegar or a few other things, but what's in the food is staying there.
I mean, this is the
sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is one of the benefits of trying to go down the roads that we go down, is the fact that we're encouraging the grow your own or grow within your local community. And most community gardens, nobody's going to want to have sprays on there. Nobody's going to want to have Roundup and various nasties on there. So that's a really good route to go down. If you can afford organic, like Nikki says, grab the organic and just give it a clean through, and that should hopefully be fine. But another thing is, if you are out there and you are starting to connect with farmers, start having that conversation with them, maybe gently. But, are you aware of, how much of the public are really starting to feel uncomfortable about having produce that's been sprayed in a number of different chemicals, and how that's having an impact on human health? And once you've got to know them, don't walk down the drive and have that conversation straight away. But it's actually worth having that conversation, because I was speaking to a farmer recently, and he believed everything that the chemical companies were telling him, that it's fine, it really doesn't have an impact, it's a microcosm amount, it really doesn't have an impact on human health, bar the fact that it makes insect stomachs explode. But you start building that up, you're going to have quite the quantity in your system. And a lot of farmers aren't actually aware of that. They genuinely believe what these salespeople push on them in terms of these chemical salespeople. And I know that because I worked in the industry. They're looking at yield. Like Nikki said, it wasn't the quality, they're looking at the quantity, because that's the pressure that's applied on them from the supermarkets and the big processing units and so forth. So that's just something to bear in mind when you're thinking about, is it really important that I grow my own? Do we really need a community growing group? Do I care that much what my farmer's doing? You kind of need to, and it is worth starting to think about this and maybe have those conversations or take a bit of action in the right direction, because it won't get better until we consumers gently apply a bit of pressure or find alternative routes. Sorry, Nikki, just wanted to jump in on that one.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to go to what Vicky said was really pertinent, actually, is that whatever they put into the soil and on the soil, the plants are going to absorb that. So the plant itself, the content in there is going to have some of these chemicals, and quite rightly, if we consume lots and lots of them, our bodies can't digest, they can't get rid of it, so it stays in, it can stay in the cells within the body, and it can turn toxic, which is why I believe we've got so much dis-ease in the human race. But also thinking about the seeds, if you are growing your own, is just be aware of the quality of seed that you go for, because a lot of seeds, I've been down to one of the farmers who grows onions around here, and he handed me a seed and I said, that's nothing like the seed that my grandmother used to put in the ground. It was blue. It was covered in a blue plastic, which has got all of the chemicals that Vicky was saying, quite possibly, actually in that little capsule to give it the fighting chance of coming through the ground and being able to grow very, very quickly so that they get the yield. So I was absolutely bamboozled that they did that. I hadn't got any idea, and I thought, crikey. So at least with organic produce, I believe that they're not able to do that sort of thing, and the soil is a better quality. But it's a minefield for people. It really is. And like you say, just be aware and ask the question and see what's said. And I think that a lot of farmers don't understand, and they don't understand microbiology or biochemistry and the human body. So for them, it's just a way of growing food to sustain. And you sort of think, well, it's not really sustaining life, because I've just told you what the definition of nutrition and nourish is. So yeah, it's yeah.
We had a farmer recently who had his soil tested by a soil expert that's been very helpful for PFFA. And he said, he tested it. He said to the farmer, the soil's almost dead. There's no life in it. There's nothing going on with it. And this farmer was quite devastated, because he's suddenly hearing that he's only realistically got a few harvests left to kind of wheedle out. But then the chap said to him, but here are some solutions for your particular soil, gave him some answers. He's now started working with that, and that's really starting to bring life back to his soil. So it can all be saved, it can all be done, but it is worth knowing where your food's come from and what quality that is and what seeds have been sown. And that's either going to happen because you've done it yourself, you're buying organic, you're working with people you can talk to directly. And that's what we're trying to do, is, you know, decentralize that food production system so we can get more, I don't like the word control, but we can certainly have more control over what we are putting in our bodies. So it's well worth looking into. Any other questions? Sorry, let me have a look, see. Someone just popped something through. If Shelley's all right. Hi, Katherine, Nikki and all. I'm a full celiac for 34 years. A few autoimmune issues I still struggle with. Exercise, so keto is ideal for my weight loss. 2 stone so far. Butter, cream, cheese, beef, so important. B12, magnesium and potassium seem to be a huge deficiency the world over with autoimmune conditions. It's a struggle to keep these topped up. Have you got a response to that at all, Nikki?
Well, firstly, I'm sorry to hear that she suffered so much for so long, and it is debilitating when your body is you know, it's crying out, really. And I'm glad that she's found something that works for her. And that's the thing, is that sometimes if you've got a medical condition, it's working out what works for you so that you don't get as many symptoms. With regards to the nutrition and the vitamins and minerals, sometimes with celiacs, if you can't get it through your diet, then a really good supplement is a necessity. It's one of those, I would say, Vicky's very good at this sort of thing as well, is either herbal or a good supplement so that you've got all of those minerals that you need. But it's monitoring your symptoms, definitely, which I'm sure, I'm just trying to see, it was Shelley, wasn't it? Was it Shelley? Yeah. So I'm sure Shelley has done this over that period of time, is actually note what can be causing symptoms and exacerbate symptoms with her. So yeah, I would say if keto is working for her, then that's brilliant. But just keep an eye on how things are going and to supplement with a decent supplement.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Any other questions? I'm very excited actually to go and look at the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. I'd never even heard of that. And I'm a single parent. I'm not in a position to buy everything organic and everything straight from the butchers yet.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to be able to know what is more favorable and what's less favorable, and actually start shopping that way. So those I'll replace the Dirty Dozen with something organic. I think that's been fantastic. I didn't realize that. Any other questions, ladies and gents? Are we all good? All good, all good, fantastic. Great. That has been so informative, Nikki. Honestly, I because there's so much information out there, and sometimes it can be confusing and overwhelming. But yeah, absolutely brilliant that I now know more what I'm supposed to be doing. So thank you so much for your time. We will be sharing this, guys. It will go out on YouTube. So if you feel that you know somebody who'd benefit from this information, or if you want to go back through it and just refresh some of the things that Nikki said, we'll have the link up in the next few days on our social media. But thank you once again, Nikki. Thank you everyone for coming, and God bless and have a lovely evening.
Yeah. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you, everyone.